They said love between women was a sin. But if that's true, why did it feel so pure when I held her? When I died, I wasn't afraid, because I knew she was waiting for me, in that crimson gown she wore the night she left this world. Her name was May, and this is the story of how I lost everything, just to love her once. I was born in a small village drowned by endless rain. That year, the floods took everything, our land, our home, and the hope in my father's eyes. When the last grain of rice was gone, he looked at me, thin, hungry, trembling, and made a choice no father should ever make. He sold me. The matchmaker smiled as she counted her silver. "She's pale," she said, "and has pretty hands. Perfect for a servant." My father didn't even look back. That was the day I stopped being a daughter and became property. I was taken to the grand manor of Lord Wren, where servants were nothing more than shadows moving through the halls. They gave me the lowest work, cleaning the latrines, fetching water, scrubbing floors until my hands bled. I ate the scraps others left behind. At night, I slept on the cold ground and prayed the roof wouldn't leak, but I never complained. I told myself, as long as I breathe, it means I am still alive. When I turned 16, my body changed, but so did something inside me. I began to notice beauty in ways I didn't understand. The noble sons in the manor were handsome, refined, yet none of them made my heart stir. And then she appeared. Lady May. She walked through the garden that afternoon, her gown flowing like clouds, her skin glowing under the sunlight. Every step she took was soft, elegant, and for the first time, I forgot to breathe. At first, I thought it was admiration, but admiration doesn't make your chest ache. It doesn't make you dream of someone's smile. I knew it was forbidden. A servant must never gaze at her mistress. A woman must never love another woman, and yet, I couldn't stop myself. Then one morning, Lord Wren gathered all the servants. He said Lady May had come of age, and she needed a personal maid, one who would serve her day and night. Dozens of girls stood in line, heads bowed low. When Lady May's gaze swept across us, I didn't dare look up. But then, her eyes stopped on me. "She'll do," she said softly. "What's your name?" My voice trembled. "Leon, my lady," she smiled. Just a small smile. Pretty name. "Come with me, Leon." From that day on, I stayed by her side, combing her hair, helping her dress, preparing her tea. To others, I was just a maid, but to me, every glance, every touch felt sacred. At night, as I blew out her candle, I would whisper to the dark, "Let me stay beside her, even if it's only as her shadow." That's how it began. A feeling I was never meant to have, and a love that would one day destroy us both. They said serving a noble lady was an honor, but no one told me how dangerous it would be. Not because of cruelty, but because of how easily kindness can become love. From the day I began serving Lady May, my world changed. I no longer woke to the sound of buckets and orders, but to her soft voice calling my name. "Leon," she would say each morning, as I helped her dress in layers of silk and combed her long black hair. Her hair was softer than anything I had ever touched, and every time my fingers brushed her neck, my heart would race like I had stolen something sacred. At first, she barely spoke to me, but soon she began to ask small things. Where I was from, what I liked to eat, whether I missed home. I didn't know how to answer. How could I tell her that home had sold me, that my only home now was her shadow? Sometimes she would smile, that gentle, quiet smile that made my chest ache. "Leon," she said once, "you're different from the others. You never ask for anything. I almost said, 'I only want you,' but I bit my tongue until it bled." The nights in her chamber were quiet, filled with the faint scent of lotus and candle smoke. Sometimes she would ask me to read poetry to her. Her favorite verse was one that said, "The moonlight falls upon two hearts, yet only one dares to beat." When she heard that line, she looked at me for a moment too long, and I had to lower my eyes before she saw the truth in them. Then came that night. The night that changed everything. She had just finished her evening bath. The candles flickered across the room, and steam curled in the air like mist over a lake. "Leon," she said softly, "help me wash my hair." My hands trembled as I knelt beside her. The water rippled as I poured it over her shoulders. Her bare skin glowed in the candlelight, pale, flawless, almost unreal. "Tell me," she whispered suddenly, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. I do," I stammered. "You're as beautiful as a goddess." She turned then, her eyes meeting mine, dark, unreadable, and yet full of something I couldn't name. "If you were a man," she said quietly, "would you marry me?" I couldn't breathe. The words escaped my mouth before I could stop them. If I were a man, I'd never let anyone else have you. Silence fell. Only the soft drip of water filled the air. I wanted to explain, to apologize, but she only smiled, a faint, knowing curve of her lips. "Go," she said finally. "The water's getting cold." I left the room trembling, my heart burning, my hands still warm from touching her skin. That night, I lay awake beneath the faint glow of the moon, wondering if I had ruined everything, or if something had just begun. And I was right to wonder, because from that night on, she never looked at me the same way again. They say forbidden love always begins with silence, with the things we never dare to say aloud. But sometimes silence becomes too heavy, and love finds a way to speak, even if it destroys everything after. After that night by the bath, something changed between us. Lady May never mentioned my words again, yet every time her eyes met mine, there was a faint, dangerous warmth in them. She would linger when I brushed her hair. Her hand would rest on mine a second too long. Sometimes when she smiled, I could almost believe she was hiding the same sin inside her chest. The distance between us grew thinner each day, until it vanished completely. It was the night of the Lantern Festival. The manor glowed with hundreds of lights, music echoing from the courtyard as nobles laughed and danced. But she stayed in her chamber. "I don't like crowds," she said softly, then glanced at me. "Stay with me tonight, Leon." The room was dim, the only light coming from a single red lantern. Its glow painted her face in shades of fire and shadow. She poured me wine, something no lady should ever offer her servant. "Just one cup," she said, "to celebrate the moon." I hesitated, but her hand brushed mine again, and I forgot what was right, what was wrong, what was real. We drank in silence. The wine was sweet, or maybe it was her nearness that tasted sweet. Then she said almost to herself, "Do you ever wish you were born someone else?" I looked at her. "Someone else?" "A man," she whispered. "So you could love me without shame." The words struck like thunder. My breath caught, and before I could think, I reached out and touched her hand. "Even if I were born a shadow," I said, "I'd still find my way back to you." She turned toward me, eyes shining under the lantern's glow. Her lips parted, not in fear, but in surrender, and then she kissed me, softly, tremblingly, as if the whole world might burn if she pressed any harder. The lantern flickered. The flame inside danced wildly, just like my heart. When she pulled away, tears shimmered in her eyes. "Leon," she whispered, "if anyone finds out, they'll kill us both. I know." My voice was barely a breath. "But even if I die tomorrow, I won't regret tonight." She rested her forehead against mine, and for a moment, the world was silent. No masters, no servants, no sins. Just two souls who had found each other in the wrong lifetime. That night, under the red lanterns, we crossed a line we could never return from. And in the morning, the world began to change. They say every secret has its dawn, and when light finally touches it, nothing beautiful can survive. For weeks after that night, Lady May and I lived in a fragile dream. We smiled at each other in daylight as if nothing had changed, yet every glance carried the memory of the lantern's glow. At night, I brushed her hair, helped her undress, and when the candles went out, our hearts spoke louder than words ever could. We thought we were careful. We thought no one would ever know. But the world listens, even when walls don't. A whisper can travel faster than the wind. One afternoon, the house steward passed me in the corridor. His gaze lingered too long. That was the first sign, and I was too blind to see it. Days later, old Master Shen announced Lady May's betrothal. The chosen groom, a noble young lord, the pride of the city. He was gentle, educated, and everything I was not. Lady May knelt before her father, tears in her eyes, but she didn't protest. How could she? A daughter has no voice in her own fate. That night, she came to me in silence. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling. "Leon," she said, "they've arranged my wedding. It's in 3 months." The world around me fell quiet, like before a storm. "I'll go with you," I said. "I'll serve you wherever you are." She shook her head. "You don't understand. He's not like others. If he suspects—" I took her hands in mine. "Then let him suspect. Let them all suspect. I won't leave you." She cried, soft, desperate tears, and I knew that whatever came after, I'd already chosen my fate. The wedding came sooner than I could believe. The mansion was covered in red silk and gold lanterns. I stood by her side as she was dressed in her bridal robes, a phoenix crown gleaming on her head. She looked like a goddess carved from sorrow. When our eyes met in the mirror, I forced a smile. "Beautiful," I whispered. She reached for my hand behind the folds of her sleeve, and for a heartbeat, she was mine again. Then the drums began to beat. The gates opened. The bridal procession moved forward, and I followed, step by step, into a life that was never meant for me. Her husband, Lord Han, was everything a man should be. Polite, refined, kind at first. He didn't mind my presence. He even thanked me for serving his wife so devotedly. But at night, when the candles were dim and I sat by her bed, I could see in her eyes that she was only half alive. We spoke little, but our hands always found each other in the dark, and then came the night that destroyed us. Lord Han was supposed to be away. A banquet, 3 days long. Lady May couldn't sleep without me nearby. We spoke softly in her chamber, then one word led to another, and we forgot the world outside. When she kissed me, I thought the heavens themselves had gone silent. But the door creaked open. The sound froze my heart. He stood there, Lord Han, his face pale with shock, his eyes dark with something I'd never seen before. At first, he didn't shout. He just stared, as if the ground beneath him had fallen away. Then, in a voice colder than iron, he said, "So this is my wife's true devotion." Lady May gasped, trembling. I tried to shield her, falling to my knees. "Please, my lord, it's my fault, not hers." He didn't answer. He only laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "The whole city will know what filth hides in my house," he spat. Then he turned to the guards outside. "Take her away." That was the last night I saw her face under the same roof. The night love turned into sin, and from then on, I was no longer a person. I was punishment itself. They say some loves are not meant to last, not because they are wrong, but because the world never learned how to see them. They took me away that night. No one looked at me, as if even a glance would taint their souls. I was dragged through the courtyard, the red wedding lanterns still burning, mocking me with their brightness. Lord Han's voice echoed behind me. "Sell her to the brothel. Let her serve the world she's so eager to shame." I screamed her name. "Lady May! Don't come out!" "Please," but she did. She ran barefoot into the rain, her wedding robe soaked and heavy, her hair unpinned, her face pale as moonlight. They held her back. Her cry tore through the storm like a knife through silk. And then I was gone. The brothel was hell disguised in perfume and laughter. Men's hands were my chains, their drunken eyes my punishment. Each night I died piece by piece until I could no longer tell if I was breathing or merely remembering how. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I'd stare at the broken window and imagine she was on the other side, still calling my name. Weeks turned into months. One evening, a messenger came, a whisper carried by pity. He said Lady May had stopped eating, that she sat by her window every night, watching the same moon I watched through my cracked glass. She said, the messenger whispered, if Leon dies, I will follow her. The world went still. My breath, my heartbeat, everything stopped. In that moment, I knew the end had already been written. The next morning, as a drunken noble fell asleep beside me, I took the small blade hidden under the mattress. Its edge caught the faint moonlight. It didn't feel cold, only honest. I whispered to the night, if I must die, then let my soul find hers. And then, I cut. The world faded into red, the same color as her wedding dress. I fell to the floor, the scent of blood and wine blending into something almost peaceful. Through the haze, I saw her. Or maybe it was a dream. She was standing there in her bridal gown, a faint smile on her lips, her hand reaching out. Leon, she said softly, you took too long. I tried to laugh, but no sound came. I reached for her, and this time there were no guards, no masters, no shame. Only her. They found my body at dawn, and in another part of the city, Lady May was discovered hanging by a red silk ribbon, her wedding veil still covering her face. They said she left a letter, but no one dared to read it aloud. All I know is this. That night, the moon was full, and the wind carried two names whispered into eternity. In life, they called us sinners. In death, we became a legend. Two women who loved each other when the world said we shouldn't.